The diner was full of aliens, but all eyes turned when a strange human walked in. The space station Navora hub was always busy, always loud, filled with creatures from every corner of the galaxy. In the middle of this chaos stood a small diner called Zara's Bite, where food was fast, tables were sticky, and gossip never slept. Among the staff, Yulari was the quietest. A tiny alien girl with soft purple skin and large green eyes. She moved like a shadow between tables, careful, quick, and always trying not to be noticed. That day started like any other, with noisy aliens demanding spicy bugs, extra slime, or cold glow juice. But everything changed when the door opened, and he walked in, a tall figure, broad-shouldered, skin like pale sand, eyes calm like still water. He was a human, and not many humans came here. Yulari felt her steps slow as she caught sight of him. There was something different in the way he walked. Steady, strong, but relaxed. Some aliens stared, some laughed under their breath, others just watched silently. Humans were rare, and usually weak compared to other species. That was the rumor anyway. Yulari's manager, a fat three-eyed garlock, barked at her. "Table 9, go now." She grabbed a tray with drinks and hurried over, eyes still stealing glances at the human. He had already sat down at the far corner table, near the window that showed the stars. She carefully placed the drinks on another table on the way, and moved toward him. But just as she passed a wide, rough-skinned alien named Broger, everything went wrong. Broger stood suddenly, knocking into her, and her tray flew. A loud splash echoed as drinks spilled across the floor, and straight onto the human's shirt. Gasps filled the diner. Forks paused mid-air. Broger laughed loudly. "Oops, sorry, little waitress, must have slipped." Yulari froze, heart racing, eyes wide in horror. She expected shouting, maybe even a fight. Everyone did, but the human didn't yell. He looked down at his wet shirt, then at Yulari, and simply smiled. "It's all right," he said softly, his voice calm and warm. Then he bent down and began picking up the fallen cups. Yulari dropped to her knees to help, hands shaking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," she whispered. He glanced at her gently. "It's okay. Accidents happen." The kindness in his voice made her chest ache. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not even her own people. She felt her cheeks heat up, a strange warmth flooding her face. She didn't understand it, but she couldn't stop looking at him. Broger, still standing nearby, sneered. "You're not even mad, human? You're softer than I thought." The human slowly stood, wiping his hands. "I don't like wasting energy on anger," he said. "But if you're looking for a strength test, I don't mind." The entire diner froze again. Broger's eyes narrowed. "You challenging me?" The human didn't answer. He simply walked to the side of the diner, where an old metal storage box sat, heavy, dented, and forgotten. It was common knowledge that the box couldn't be moved. Not even the strongest delivery bots had managed to lift it. It had been there for months, like a part of the floor. Yulari stepped back, heart thudding. The human crouched, placed both hands under the box, and stood up. The box rose, slowly but surely, metal grinding against the floor. Gasps filled the air. Forks dropped. Someone knocked over a drink. Then, with a smooth motion, he pressed it over his head, arms steady, legs unmoving, and just like that, he let it drop back down gently. No words, no roar, just quiet strength. He turned back to Broger, who was now pale and speechless. "Still think I'm soft?" the human asked calmly. Broger didn't reply, just backed away and sat down quickly. The human returned to his seat at table 9, as if nothing had happened. He picked up the menu and looked at it, then glanced at Yulari. "I'll have whatever you think is good," he said, smiling again. Yulari stared at him, her heart pounding louder than the background music. Her hands were still shaking, her face warm, but she nodded quickly. "All right away," she whispered. As she walked back to the kitchen, one thought echoed in her mind. Humans aren't supposed to be this strong. And yet, her knees felt weak, and her chest felt full. Something had just changed inside her, and she didn't know if it was fear or something much, much warmer.
After the human lifted the heavy box, the diner didn't go back to normal. It became quieter, tenser, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Yolari felt it in every step, in every glance she caught. Even when she carried food to another table, her eyes kept drifting to table 9. He was still there, calm, reading the menu like nothing strange had happened. She watched as he wiped his shirt with a napkin, the stain barely noticeable now. A few aliens whispered to each other, their antennae twitching, their eyes wide. Even Broger didn't make another sound. Yolari didn't know his name, this strong human with soft eyes. She only knew that something about him didn't match the stories. Everyone said humans were weak, emotional, slow, but this one lifted a box that even droids had left alone, and he did it with ease. The chef called her name, pulling her back to the kitchen. She picked up the plate, spicy starfish with blue sauce, and walked back to him. Her hands still shook a little, but she tried to steady them. "Here's your food," she said softly, placing the plate in front of him. He looked up, gave a small nod. "Thank you, Yolari." She froze, eyes wide. How do you know my name?" He smiled. "It's written on your badge." She blinked, feeling silly, and quickly looked down. Her face turned hot again, and she turned to walk away. But then he said something that made her stop. "You look like you've had a hard day." Yolari turned back slowly. "I'm fine," she said quickly, then added, "I mean, it's always busy, that's all." He nodded. Still, people should be treated better, even when it's busy. His voice was calm, almost too calm, like he wasn't just talking about today. Yolari sat at the corner of the counter, pretending to wipe something, just so she could listen more. A group of aliens entered, loud and full of energy. One of them pointed at Jack. Yes, they called him Jack now. She heard him say his name earlier. "Is that him? The human who lifted the box?" Another laughed. "No way. Humans can't do that." One of the big guys from the group walked over to the metal box. He bent down, grunted, pulled hard, nothing. He tried again, face turning red, still nothing. Everyone laughed. Even the kitchen staff peeked out. "Okay, maybe it happened," the alien said, rubbing his back, "but he still looks soft to me." Jack didn't react, just kept eating. The alien stepped closer. "Hey, human, why don't you show us your real strength? Crush this metal cup." He tossed a dented cup on Jack's table. Yolari held her breath. Jack looked at the cup, then picked it up with one hand. He squeezed gently. There was a soft crunch, and the cup folded like paper. He set it down, flat like a plate. The alien's eyes went wide. Jack spoke quietly. "Strength isn't loud." Then he went back to eating. Yolari's chest fluttered again. She had never seen someone so calm, so powerful, yet so kind. She had met warriors before, loud ones who wanted attention. But Jack was different, and that difference made her heart beat faster. Her coworker nudged her. "You're staring again." Yolari looked away, pretending to clean the table. "I'm not," she muttered. The coworker giggled. "You are, and your ears are glowing." Yolari groaned quietly, trying to hide behind the drink station. Later that evening, Jack stood up to leave. He placed a few credits on the table and nodded at her. "Thank you for the meal." She rushed forward. "Wait, will you come again? I mean, if you want." He smiled. "Maybe." As he walked out, the doors closed behind him, and the noise returned to normal. But Yolari still stood there, staring at the empty chair. The crushed cup still sat on the table, silent proof of what had happened. Everyone saw it. Everyone now knew. The human wasn't weak, not even close. And yet, the way he looked at her, the way he spoke, it felt gentler than anything she'd ever known. She touched the tray still in her hand, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Her manager shouted, "Yulari, stop dreaming and clean up." She nodded and moved quickly, but her thoughts stayed on him. On Jack, the strange human who didn't raise his voice, who smiled when others mocked him, who crushed metal like paper, and most of all, who remembered her name.
Yulari couldn't sleep. Her heart raced thinking of the human. The stars outside Navora Hub blinked slowly, cold and distant. Inside her tiny living pod, Yulari lay curled on her thin bed, staring at the ceiling light. It flickered softly, but she barely noticed. Her thoughts were far away. Still at the diner, still at table 9, still with him. Jack, the human, had only come once. Just one visit, one smile, one plate of food. But something about him stayed in her mind like a song she couldn't stop humming. She had served thousands of customers before, but none like him. He was strong, that was clear. But it wasn't just the way he crushed the cup or lifted the box. It was the way he looked at her, the way he said her name like it mattered, the way he smiled after being drenched in drinks, like it meant nothing at all. She rolled over in bed, hugging her pillow tighter. Her cheeks grew warm just remembering his voice. Why did he make her feel like this? He was just a customer, wasn't he? But still, he saw her, really saw her when no one else ever did. Suddenly, a loud buzz echoed in her room. It was the emergency alert, blinking red near the door panel. She jumped up, pressed the screen, and read the message. Cargo Bay incident. 2 injured. Blockage emergency. No tools available. Yulari's heart skipped. Cargo Bay wasn't far from the diner, and the time matched right after Jack had left. She stared at the screen, biting her lip. Could he have gone that way? Could he be there? Her legs moved before her mind decided. She threw on her jacket, slipped into her shoes, and rushed out the door. The corridors were mostly empty, silent except for distant alarms and flashing lights. When she reached Cargo Bay 4, a crowd had already gathered. Aliens of different sizes whispered, gasped, and pointed toward the chaos beyond the line. A large metal crate had fallen across a hallway, trapping 2 station workers. The rescue team was still waiting for equipment, unable to lift the heavy object. But someone was already moving toward the crate. Yulari pushed through the crowd, her chest tight with worry, and then she saw him. Jack, the human, standing before the giant container. His shirt was torn slightly at the shoulder, but his face was calm. He spoke quietly to the trapped workers, telling them to stay still. The rescue team tried to stop him. "You'll hurt yourself, human. That's too heavy." He didn't argue, didn't explain, he just crouched low and gripped the bottom of the crate. Yulari couldn't breathe. Her hands clenched together. Everyone watched in silence as his muscles tensed. Slowly, the crate began to lift. Screams of surprise echoed. Camera drones flew in. He didn't drop it. He held it up, sweat rolling down his face but his arms steady. One by one, the workers crawled out from under the crate, tears in their eyes. Once they were safe, Jack lowered the metal to the floor, soft and careful. Gasps turned into cheers, and some aliens clapped their hands or waved their tentacles. Yulari just stood frozen, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. She didn't understand why, but something in her heart swelled, not because he was strong, but because he risked himself without needing thanks. He did it because someone needed help. Jack stood up straight, breathing heavy, and then, his eyes found hers. He smiled, even though he looked exhausted. She took a step forward, lips parted, wanting to say something. Anything, but her voice didn't come. Only a soft squeak escaped. Jack walked toward her, wiping his brow. didn't expect to see you here, he said gently. She nodded quickly, cheeks burning. I saw the alert and I thought, maybe, he chuckled. I'm glad you came. Yulari looked at his arms, still trembling a little. Are you okay? You should rest. I will, he replied. But I didn't want to leave without making sure they were safe. That sentence made her heart flutter again. So selfless, so quiet, so strong. Jack started to turn away, but paused. Yulari, can I ask something? She nodded, surprised he remembered her name again. Why were you crying in your sleep? Her breath caught. She hadn't known he noticed. She opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she just looked down and whispered, It's hard to be seen when you're small. He didn't laugh, didn't ask more. He just placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. And in that small touch, she felt more comfort than she'd known in years.
Hook. He saved lives, then walked straight to her. Yulari stood frozen as Jack's hand rested gently on her shoulder. His touch wasn't heavy, but it felt strong, calm, and warm, like sunlight through the window on a cold morning. She didn't pull away, even though her heart beat faster than ever. She looked up, her big green eyes filled with something between confusion and wonder. Jack didn't say anything else, didn't push for answers. He just smiled a little, then let go, stepping back with quiet respect. The station's med team rushed over, checking on the rescued workers. One of them noticed Jack and tried to pull him aside for treatment. You need to rest, human, the medic said. Your muscles are overstrained. I'm fine, Jack replied, rubbing his arm. Just need some water. Yulari stepped forward, her voice small but steady. Come with me. I'll take you to the staff lounge. Jack blinked in surprise, then nodded. Lead the way. As they walked through the dim corridors, Yulari's mind raced. She had never invited anyone to the staff lounge, not even coworkers. It was a tiny room behind the diner, meant for quick naps and snack breaks. But somehow bringing Jack there felt right. When they entered, the room was quiet and empty. She grabbed a cool drink from the machine and handed it to him. Jack sat down slowly on the old bench, stretching his sore arms. Thanks, he said, sipping. You didn't have to bring me here. Yulari sat on the opposite bench, fidgeting with her fingers. I wanted to, she whispered, not daring to look at him. For a moment, there was silence, not awkward, just soft and peaceful. Then Jack spoke again. What you said earlier about being small, I get it. Yulari looked up slowly. You do? Jack nodded. Back on Earth, I was always overlooked, not strong, not fast, just average. She tilted her head, confused. But now you're different. He smiled. That came later, after I stopped trying to be like everyone else. Yulari listened carefully, her chest tight with emotion. No one listens to me here, she admitted. They just laugh, or shout, or ignore. Jack leaned forward slightly. Then they're fools. Her eyes widened. What? You work hard, you're kind, and you're brave, Jack said. I saw you run to the cargo bay, without thinking twice. Yulari blushed again, her face turning a deep violet. I didn't want you to get hurt, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Jack's smile softened, and for the first time, she saw something behind his strength. A sadness, a tiredness he kept hidden beneath his calm face. Thank you, he said quietly. That means more than you know. They sat together for a while, just breathing in the silence. Yulari's heart began to slow, her body relaxing for the first time in days. She didn't feel small when she was with him. She felt safe. Suddenly, her vision blurred. She shook her head and tried to stand, but the room tilted sideways. Jack noticed instantly and reached out, catching her before she could fall. Yulari? She blinked, confused. I think I stood too fast. Jack gently helped her sit back down, keeping a hand on her back. You're overheating, he said. Have you eaten today? Yalari looked away, embarrassed. I skipped lunch and dinner. Jack frowned. Why? I didn't feel hungry, she muttered. I was too busy thinking. About me? He asked softly. Her face flushed, and she hid behind her hands. Maybe. He chuckled, not teasing, just warm and gentle. You need to take care of yourself, too, he said, reaching for the food box nearby. He opened a small snack bar and handed it to her. She took it, her fingers brushing against his again. That little touch, it made her chest feel like it might burst. She ate slowly, quietly, while he sat beside her. They didn't talk much more, but something deep passed between them. A quiet understanding, a shared moment that neither of them wanted to end. After she finished, she leaned her head against the wall, eyes closing. Jack stood up, adjusting his jacket. I should let you rest, he said. Yalari opened her eyes halfway. Will you come back tomorrow? Jack paused at the door, then turned his head slightly. If you want me to, he said. I do, she whispered, almost too soft to hear. Jack nodded once and left. Yalari sat alone in the room, holding the empty snack wrapper close to her chest. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled, not because someone liked her, but because someone saw her, touched her, and treated her like she mattered.
He saw the truth behind her smile. The next day, the diner felt strangely quiet. Even though the seats were full, Yalari moved between tables as usual, carrying trays and taking orders. But her mind wasn't here. It was watching the door, waiting, hoping, holding her breath every time it opened. Her coworkers noticed, of course. You're glowing again. One whispered, laughing. Another nudged her. He's not your boyfriend, you know? Yalari said nothing, just gave a small smile and kept working. But inside, her heart beat like a drum. She didn't care what they thought. She only wanted to see him again. Jack, the quiet human who lifted crates and lifted her heart. Hours passed, and finally the door slid open. Jack walked in, calm as ever, his jacket slightly worn, eyes scanning the room. When they found her, his lips curved into a small smile. She nearly dropped the plate in her hand. He sat at table 9 again, the same spot as before. She rushed over, pretending to be calm. Welcome back, she said, her voice soft but cheerful. Good to be back, he replied. Miss me? She looked down, smiling. A little. They spoke quietly as she took his order. No more stumbles, no more spilled trays. Just quiet moments between two people trying to understand each other. After the rush hour slowed down, her manager grunted and waved her off. Take your break. You've been staring at that human like a lost puppy. Yalari didn't argue. She grabbed 2 drinks and walked to Jack's table. He gestured for her to sit, and she did, for the first time ever during work. I wanted to thank you, Jack said, sipping his drink. For what? For being kind, he said. Not everyone is, especially to people who don't belong. Yalari nodded slowly. I know that feeling. Jack tilted his head. Tell me. She hesitated, her hands wrapping tightly around the drink cup, but his voice was patient, gentle, so she spoke, slowly, quietly. I was born smaller than others of my kind, she said. My parents said I was weak, a waste of energy. Jack frowned but said nothing, letting her continue. They sent me to work young, said it was all I was good for, carrying plates, scrubbing floors. She looked down, eyes watery. I tried to smile, tried to do well, but no one ever looked at me like I mattered. She paused, afraid to see his face, but Jack reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. You matter, he said firmly. To me you do. Her throat tightened, her eyes burning. You don't even know me, she whispered. I know enough, he said. I see how you move, careful but fast. always helping, always quiet, like you're afraid of being too loud. Yulari looked at him with wide eyes. No one's ever said that. They should have, he said softly. Their hands stayed like that for a moment, fingers barely touching, until someone nearby knocked over a tray, breaking the spell. Jack pulled back, and Yulari wiped her eyes quickly. But something had shifted. Something deep and real. She had never shared her story with anyone. Now that she had, she felt lighter, as if part of her pain had melted away under Jack's gaze. Jack stood up after finishing his meal. He placed more credits on the table than needed. You always tip too much, Yulari said, smiling. You deserve it, he replied. Before leaving, he paused again. I've got something to take care of tonight, he said. But I'll be back tomorrow, all right? She nodded quickly. I'll be waiting. But that night she couldn't sleep again. Her mind kept replaying his words, his hand, the way he said she mattered. For the first time, she didn't feel like just a waitress. She felt important. She got up, pulled out a small old photo from her drawer. It was of her as a child, standing alone outside a broken food stall. Her eyes in the photo looked sad, just like she remembered. But now, looking at it, she whispered, "You're going to be okay. Someone saw you." Meanwhile, on another side of the station, Jack stood in the shadows near a docking bay. A dark figure approached him, helmeted, voice rough. "You've been seen, human," the figure said. "They know what you're capable of." Jack's eyes narrowed. "Let them come," he said. "But don't touch the girl." The figure laughed. "Already attached? That little alien waitress?" Jack stepped forward, voice cold now. "She's under my protection." And for the first time, the calm, kind human looked dangerous.
"You owe us, human," one of them growled, "and we've come to collect." The next morning, the diner was busier than usual. Word had spread across Navora Hub about the human who lifted the impossible crate. Aliens from different zones came in pretending to order food just to catch a glimpse of him. Yulari felt the energy shift as soon as she entered. She wore her cleanest apron, brushed her soft purple hair twice, and even polished her name tag. Every 10 minutes she peeked at the door. And finally he arrived. Jack stepped in, calm as ever, but with his eyes scanning the crowd. Yulari rushed over, smiling. "You're back." "I said I would be," Jack answered with a small grin. She seated him at table 9 again, his unofficial place now. Some aliens stared, some whispered, others backed away as he passed. Yulari brought him his usual, without needing to ask. "Busy day already," she said, placing the plate. "Too many eyes," Jack replied, not looking up. She tilted her head, confused. "What's wrong?" Before he could answer, the door burst open. 4 tall, armored figures walked in, their boots loud against the floor. The diner fell silent. Even the music from the wall speakers stuttered. Their leader had gray skin, sharp eyes, and a voice like broken glass. "You owe us, human," he said, stepping forward, "and we've come to collect." Yulari stepped back, heart racing. Jack didn't flinch, didn't move, just set down his drink. "You shouldn't have come here," he said quietly. The armored alien snarled. "You vanished with stolen strength, tech that wasn't yours, and now you hide behind this tiny girl." He pointed at Yulari, making her freeze in fear. Jack stood slowly, his shadow stretching across the table. "Don't speak about her," Jack said, voice deeper now. The leader grinned. "Touchy, aren't we? You've gone soft." One of the others pushed a table aside and stepped closer. Jack raised his hand slowly. "You don't want this." The thug laughed. "What will you do? Crush another cup?" The next second happened so fast, no one saw it coming. Jack moved, faster than any eye could follow. He grabbed the alien's arm, twisted it, and slammed him into the wall. The entire diner shook, Glass rattled. Drinks spilled. The leader roared, "Get him!" All three remaining attackers charged. Yulari ducked behind the counter, her hands over her ears, heart thudding like thunder. Jack fought like a storm. Every move was sharp, precise. One attacker flew into a chair, another was flipped over a table. But the third struck him with a glowing rod. Jack staggered back, a strange hum rising from the weapon. Yulari peeked out, eyes wide with horror. The leader lifted the rod again, preparing to strike Jack's back. Without thinking, without stopping, Yulari screamed, "No!" She jumped over the counter and threw herself at the attacker. A tray slammed into his head, knocking the rod aside. Jack turned just in time to see her fall. He caught her before she hit the floor, his arms trembling from pain. "Yulari, why?" "You said I mattered," she whispered. "Then let me matter." The attackers hesitated, surprised by the alien girl's courage. Jack stood, holding her protectively. His expression changed, no longer calm, no longer quiet. There was fire in his eyes. He stepped forward and slammed his foot into the floor. A shockwave rippled out, knocking tables over and forcing the attackers back. The room groaned as lights flickered. Jack's voice thundered, "If you ever come near her again, I won't be gentle." The leader, bleeding and stunned, cursed and pulled out a signal device. "We'll return human, and when we do, she's first." Jack threw a chair with perfect aim, shattering the device before it could beep. "You won't get that chance," he said. The attackers limped out, dragging their injured with them. The diner remained frozen, no one speaking. Then, slowly, the silence broke with scattered claps, gasps, and cheers. Aliens began murmuring. "He protected her. He took them all. That human is dangerous." Jack turned back to Yulari, still in his arms. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, eyes still locked on his. "I've never done anything like that before." "You were brave," he said, gently brushing her hair back. "I was scared." Being scared and still acting, that's what bravery is. He helped her sit, but didn't move away. The other staff peeked from the back, shocked but safe. Her manager mumbled, "I guess he eats for free now." Yulari laughed weakly, and Jack smiled. But under that smile, his mind was racing. They knew now, the past was catching up. And worse, Yulari was now part of it.
She was small, scared, but something inside her finally broke free. The diner was a mess. Tables broken, chairs scattered, walls cracked where the fight had ended. Yulari sat on the floor, still in Jack's arms, her breathing fast but steady. Around her, the other staff slowly began cleaning up. But all eyes stayed on the human and the tiny waitress. They had just fought back against armed attackers, and somehow they were still standing. Jack looked down at Yulari, checking her one more time. "Are you sure you're not hurt?" "I'm sure," she said softly. "But I think my heart's still shaking." Jack smiled gently. "That's okay, mine too." For a while, no one spoke, just the sound of broken plates and mop buckets moving across the floor. But in the corner of the room, someone moved. A small alien child stood staring at Yulari with wide eyes. "Are you a fighter now?" the child asked in a whisper. Yulari blinked, surprised, then looked at her own trembling hands. She had never lifted a weapon, never yelled, never stood between danger and someone else. Until today. "I don't know," she replied. "But I couldn't just watch." That evening, the station buzzed with stories of what had happened. Not just about the human strength, but about the alien waitress who stepped forward. Rumors flew fast, and before long, the entire sector was talking. Some called her brave, others called her foolish, but everyone remembered her name. That night, she sat with Jack on the rooftop garden of the station, where glowing flowers swayed under artificial stars. They sat in silence, the quiet air filled with emotions too big for words. Finally, Yulari spoke. They're going to come back, aren't they? Jack nodded. Yes, they won't stop. Not until they think I'm gone. Then I'll leave, she said suddenly. I'll go somewhere far, so they don't come for me. Jack turned to her, shocked. No, Yulari, I didn't protect you just to lose you. But they'll hurt you because of me, she whispered. I don't want to be your weakness. Jack took her hand gently, holding it between both of his. You're not my weakness, he said. You're my reason. Tears filled her eyes. But I'm just a waitress. You're the only one who saw me as more than a weapon, he said. You reminded me I could be human. Suddenly, a beep came from Jack's wrist device. He tapped it, his eyes narrowing. They're already back, he muttered. And this time, they're not hiding. Without another word, he stood and offered her his hand. Stay behind me. No, Yulari said, standing beside him. This time I stand with you. They rushed back to the diner, now dim and quiet after hours. But the attackers were already there, breaking in through the side door. The leader stepped forward, scarred and angrier than before. I warned you, human. Walk away or the girl suffers. Yulari stepped forward, voice trembling but strong. I'm not afraid of you. The leader laughed. Then you're stupid. No, she said. I just know what I'm worth now. As he raised his weapon, Jack moved to shield her. But Yulari grabbed a bottle of glowing kitchen oil from the counter and threw it at the leader's face. He screamed as the liquid burned his eyes, dropping his weapon. The others charged, but Jack met them head-on. The fight was fast, brutal, and loud. Jack slammed one attacker into the wall, kicked another through the door. Yulari ducked behind the counter, then grabbed a kitchen shield used for hot dishes. When one of the aliens leaped toward Jack's back, she slammed the shield into him with a scream. He fell hard, knocked out cold. Jack turned, saw her, and smiled through the chaos. Nice hit. I've been watching you, she said with a grin. In less than a minute it was over. The attackers were on the floor, groaning, defeated. Jack stood breathing heavily, and Yulari leaned against the counter, heart pounding. But they were alive, safe, and stronger than ever. Later, as security officers took the criminals away, a senior officer walked over. You two make quite the team, she said. Ever thought of working together? Yulari glanced at Jack, then smiled. I already am. From that day forward, the diner changed. People came not just for food, but for the legend of the human and the alien waitress. They weren't just stories anymore. They were proof that courage doesn't always come from size or strength. Sometimes, it comes from a tray, a voice, and a heart that refuses to stay silent. And every time Jack walked into the diner, Yulari was already waiting, not to serve him but to sit beside him, because she wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a fighter, and she had chosen him, just as he had chosen her.